actually using the cutting edge technology, that's the thing that excites people.
How do you embed innovation in the culture of your people?
It will become more efficient and we will use it in the future. And my criticism in many ways of financial services is I don't think we've evolved quickly enough given the advancement of technology that we see today.
If it wasn't for COVID, we probably wouldn't have had the same sort of adoption of cloud in the financial services markets, full stop, right? Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Thing About FinTech podcast with me, Toby Babb.
And me, Anvar Karimson. And today we're here to explore some of the stories of innovation and growth in modern day fintechs. Our first guest is Alasdair Haynes from Aquis Exchange. Welcome, Alasdair.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
Our first guest, huh?
First guest.
We're very excited.
Lot to live up to now.
So do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, I mean, Aquis Exchange, we are a challenger stock exchange and we do three things. And the first is we trade 6,500 stocks in 16 different markets across Europe, and we operate a unique subscription model. The other thing we do is we operate a primary market, the only other primary market in the United Kingdom to the London Stock Exchange. That's a recognised investment exchange licence, and we have companies that come and raise capital on us. But of course the third one, we talk about innovation and technology, is we run a technologies business and we license our technology right the way around the world in some of the most cutting edge cloud technology out there to other exchanges.
So that's a great story. So how do you go from running a very successful exchange to think we need to pull out a technology company here? In my mind, there's only a few companies that successfully have done it. Ocado is one of those. What was the thought process behind that?
Well, I think the answer is looking at the other way around, which is actually we're a technology company that was operating a stock exchange. And we suddenly realized that we had this unique piece of technology. We were very, very fortunate that we did a couple of prototypes for people that actually made us change the technology we had. We saw an opportunity. We were able to do something that other people weren't doing, and particularly in cloud technology. And we're great believers that cloud is ultimately the way forward here. So we took that opportunity, invested in it, and so far I've had great success.
Great. And what was that like for the culture of the company? Did you physically split the companies, or how about your technology people? Were they segregated?
Not at all. Absolutely not at all. And I don't believe that's the right way to build a business. I think we have a technology team of technology developers, and they treat the stock exchange business, the markets business, as customers of theirs. So we have external customers and we have internal customers. And I think that way you manage to keep the culture. And the culture here is really, really important because it is all about cutting edge. And I think, Toby, you'll know this better than anybody else. If you're hiring people in the sort of fintech world, I mean, whilst obviously getting paid properly is part of it, but actually using the cutting edge technology, that's the thing that excites people. We want people to come into the office, or if they are working from home, get excited about what they're doing here. And when you're doing something that nobody else has ever done in the world ever before, that excites the hell out of them. And we want that type of person to join the company.
I think that's so important. We'll come back onto that a little bit later on, because I think your culture is definitely one of the things that has marked the company out, and it's become a sort of magnet for talent because of that. But we've done quite a lot of work in my day job on looking at what makes a great company and what's a great company for technologists. And I think when you're there and you're talking about exactly that, giving people access to really interesting projects, to be part and purpose of a mission, to be part of something, those are things which I think you guys have got really on point with it.
I've been in this industry for 47 years, and one of the things I love the city, I love the environment, but you learn a lot in that time. There's not many things that are good about getting old, but one of them is getting that experience. And you learn that the best way to motivate people is they've got to feel part of a team. So the first thing we do, for example, is there is nobody at Aquis Exchange who doesn't actually own shares in the business in some way. And that partnership, in my view, is absolutely critical. I mean, I've worked for many people in the past, who take all the cash and you work incredibly hard and you don't get anything for yourself. And it shouldn't be like that. We're one team working in one direction where everybody gets a chance to put their view out there, and we'll listen to it. And it's the way you operate the business that I think can make successful technology companies. And I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I think my view has always been that a good technology business is only a good technology business if they've got the right people behind it. You can have a great product, a great idea, but if your people are poor in that sort of element, it's never going to go to where it wants. But if you've got an idea that can be developed and you have the right people around that, that's where it can go to different levels.
Absolutely, and we've seen that. You mentioned cloud. Aquis Exchange was one of the first cloud exchanges in the world. So obviously technology is something that is very important for everyone in the firm. And how was that journey? How was that decision taken to go to the cloud and kind of push the boundaries of exchange technology?
Well, I think I'm somebody who is what I would say very careful with their money. And maybe it's my Scottish ancestry that comes out, but Scottish people are very well known for that. They're also very well known to be innovative. And I think when sort of I look back here, why did we get into the cloud? Well, actually, it's really cost effective. I think the great example, I use it often to both investors and clients, which is, you probably have cars. Most of the people watching this today will own a car. But for about 93% of the time, that car is never driven. It sits in a driveway, or sits in a garage, or sits in the road outside your house. And if I gave you the opportunity to be able to have the same car, use it whenever you wanted to, but just pay 7% rather than 93%, you'd bite my hand off. Everybody would. And cloud technology is like that. You only pay for the use of the cloud technology when you're using it. So for most businesses, and we're not talking about 24/7, which is something we're very heavily involved in, but for most exchanges around the world, they're not operating, and particularly early stage businesses, they don't operate 24/7. So therefore, they're trying to look at the most cost-efficient way of establishing themselves. And that is exactly what cloud can do. So it gives the startup or the smaller exchanges a competitive advantage compared to on-prem or data center-based technologies which are there today.
Absolutely.
And it's spotting that opportunity. I was talking to somebody earlier on about very few things in the world ever get invented. But actually, if you look at other areas in the world where somebody else is doing something and use that, and then bring that into your business, you can look at the opportunity that you actually get from that. And that is exactly, in most areas of Aquis, what we've actually done, which was we've looked at, for the example, the markets business, the subscription model. The subscription model, the marginal cost of zero, hugely attractive. It's changed shopping, it's changed music, it's changed television, it's changed all our industries. But actually, we were still the first person to bring the subscription model into trading. The cloud is doing the same thing. If you look about why technology is changing in so many other different industries, we come here, we can effectively cheapen the cost of doing business for people. And ultimately, if you want to be a massive exchange and you're operating 24/7, we can then look at ways in which you can hybrid the cloud for certain parts of your business. So you can still get the low latency, you can still work with your data centers, but also benefit for the advantages of having the cloud. And ultimately, as cloud gets better and better over the years, it becomes more secure, it becomes more efficient, it becomes faster, then actually you'll be prepared and ready for that cloud technology.
What gives you what gave you the opportunity to be the first? Because we always talk about early adopters, and someone's going to be the first to move into the cloud or the subscription model. As you say, it's happened across every other industry. The subscription model in particular, I read a brilliant book about the subscription economy, full stop. And it feels like a natural sort of play when you do it, but before you do it, it isn't a natural sort of play, right? So what was it that allowed you to be buccaneering, pioneering, whichever way you want to call it?
Well, I think, I was brought up, but listen to the customer, listen to the people around you, listen all the time. And that is absolutely right. And you shouldn't remove, don't stop. And the people watching this should not say, stop listening to your client. But there is a certain amount of arrogance that you need as an entrepreneur, which is sometimes if you're going to do something different, don't just listen to your client, but look at what the problem the client has and see if you can problem solve it in another way.
Yeah.
And that is actually what we're trying to do here, is problem solve to make things more efficient, more cost effective for people, but doing it in a different way. Yeah. And I've always been like that. I mean, I think ever since I was a child, I was always told I was quite difficult and disruptive. I certainly was difficult and disruptive at school. And I've carried on that. And that, careful for those people who've got parents with young children here, but the truth is, encourage people to have their own thoughts and be disruptive in a positive way. Yeah. And I think that's how we look at life here. When somebody tells me you have to do it this way, this is the way it's been done for 300 years, that is the worst thing to say to me, because it will be, well, actually, I think we can change that. There has to be a better way of doing it. And the world does evolve, and business evolves. And my criticism in many ways of financial services is I don't think we've evolved quickly enough, given the advancement of technology that we see today. And I think there are still huge opportunities all over the financial services and capital markets.
Which ties into some of the things you've been talking about as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So do you see digital ledger technologies as part of this transition? Do you see that as a crucial next step, or what is your view there?
Only if... And there was if you study anything on change models and human behavioral change, it's pretty simple at the end, that you can read all these academic books, but at the end of it, you've got to say that the result of change only takes effect if the outcome after the change is better than the status quo. Mm-hmm. Not that difficult, really, but scientists have gone on for years and years and written these complicated models like the glycode change model and all these sort of things. But actually, you've just got to show something's better. So what I would say with distributed ledger technology is, as long as you can prove that it is more efficient, more effective, better value, and changes the outcome for the users of it, then it will move forward. So our strategy at Aquis has always been, when crypto came along and tokenization and distributed ledger came along, my view has always been, if you read about the gold rush, the American gold rush, the people who made the money sold the shovel. The people who made the money sold the shovels. And I want to be a shovel seller in technology here, because the answer to your question is I don't know. And I'm not certain anybody actually does know today. And we certainly don't know who is going to be successful and who will fail.
And when.
And when it's going to happen. And tokenization is a great example. I'm a great believer that tokens is the way forward, but I'm not quite certain when. And we go back to distributed ledger technology, is that nobody yet has shown me that the benefit from it is better than what we could currently do with the current technology that we're using for the settlement process. Now, I think, if as a gambling man, I actually think that distributed ledger technology will work it out, it will become more efficient, and we will use it in the future. Because there are plenty of examples, I think, out there, which is, if you look at the equity market in particular, and careful for those people who are registrars, because I'm not going to be terribly polite now, which is, I get called from time to time, and the regulator or something may turn around and suddenly say, can you tell me, who owns which stock, or you might be asked, etc. And the answer is, I can't actually tell anybody exactly today who owns the stock in Aquis. I can go out and apply with a registrar and get 10, 15, 2 weeks later, some information that comes back to me and tells me who are my current shareholders. But actually, I can't tell whether they are my current shareholders, because 10 days' time, it might well have changed. If you had a distributed ledger technology, which is instantaneous, the answer is I could tell them straight away. So there's an example of an inefficiency in our market today that actually should be rectified, because knowing who owns your company is a pretty important part of your business. And therefore, if we can make that more efficient, and I think there are many, many examples where that sort of thing becomes more efficient with more modern technology. And you've got to remember, we're in an industry where the technology used by the majority of exchanges around the world is something in the region of 15, 20, 25 years old. Much of that technology was created before the iPhone was invented. So you think about the modernization of this business, and why I get excited about our technology is there are something like 400 or so total addressable market of exchanges around the world that will need to change their technology over the next 5 to 10 years. That's a pretty exciting opportunity if you're using cutting edge and can create cutting edge technology.
Absolutely, and obviously you guys have gone through a lot of innovation. How do you embed innovation in the culture of your people? Do you have innovation workshops? What does that process look like at Aquis Exchange and Technology?
Well, I think the innovation workshop, yes, we do have times where people get together, and I'm a great believer anybody should be able to speak about anything in the company. You know, just because you might be junior, senior, whatever it is, does not mean that you can't speak your mind and people won't listen to you. It's really important.
And that's notable, sorry to cut in there, but from evidence that I've had, I see a lot of people here who are coming in at sort of fairly junior levels and trusted, you know, relatively quickly into more and more senior levels within the business. So I don't think it's been like, this is a top-down, this is how you do things business. It feels like you've harboured a culture of innovation by trusting people.
Well, I think it's common sense. It's just because, you know, I'm in my 60s now, you know, because you've had all that experience. Yes, I've had a lot of experience, but it doesn't make me the person who's going to come up with the best ideas. There are people in their teens, there are people in their 20s, 30s, all who see this business intricately and can look at ways of trying to make it more efficient. I want to hear from them. And that's why we do have, you know, every single month we have town hall meetings. Every month we do a pulse survey of basic questions to see how people, and we monitor that. We watch how the culture is changing. We watch to see whether people are happy or unhappy and what's changing that. And one of the things that people really dislike in companies, and I've worked in many of them, whereby you never get an opportunity to express your view and be properly heard to by people at a senior level. And it's crazy not to allow young people, particularly people who are deeply embedded in technology. Let's face it, you know, the younger people today understand the technology, use technology a lot more than the older people do. So getting the views from these people is absolutely vital. Then you've got to prioritize it. Then you have to decide what you're going to go for, where you're going to put your money down, because you can't get a million ideas and act on all of them. You've got to be able to then decide what is your priority, what are you trying to achieve, what are your absolute vital KPIs as a company that what you want to do. We took that bet. We took that bet that we are growing the markets business from an innovative model, which is the trading business. We are going to invest and are investing heavily in this technology business because we think there's such a good addressable market. We think we've got a cutting edge technology. We know we've got a cutting edge technology, and we know there's a problem. And the biggest problem people have is cost and creating a better technology to be able to trade with. And if you look at that, and you say, well, you're an exchange, you're operating a small exchange in a region, and you've just set up, and for 5 years you've signed a deal with your data center. And all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, got great technology for you, but by the way, you just got to get rid of your data center. And you say, well, that's no help to me because I've just got to pay for the next 5 years. That's not economically viable. So I come to you and then say, well, actually, keep your technology at the moment in your data center. There's 3 more years maybe to run, but sign a contract with us and we'll move you straight away into use our technology, more efficient, more effective than the technology you've got today. You can keep your data center, have it on-prem. But over time, we're going to move you off that and make you into the cloud. Never change your contract. Never change the quality of the product you've got. And then if you want to extend your trading hours, you want to grow your business, you want to be international, you can go 24/7. And we created the world's first 24/7 perpetual matching engine. It never needs to close down. You can have derivatives and all different asset classes there, but you never need to stop or do this clear out because it does it automatically. So if you can buy a technology now that can transform you from where you are to where you want to be, and you know what your costs are, then actually that becomes a very attractive proposition.
And it's important, isn't it? Because as you said, look, there's 400 odd exchanges globally who can benefit from this. But I also think it's an industry there that's been reluctant to change in terms of technology at various different phases, and it requires a little bit of nudging along the line to get people to adopt things. I've said at numerous different stages that if it wasn't for COVID, we probably wouldn't have had the same sort of adoption of cloud in the financial services markets, full stop, right? And so now we've got this sort of bandwagon where people are moving into that sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about the adoption, because you sort of said earlier on, you were talking about the sort of Henry Ford thing of, ask people what they want and you'd have had faster horses. It's a similar sort of thing that you were talking about there, about listening to the customer, but not being driven by them, having tail wagging dogs, so to speak, in terms of where you're looking at. How do you work in a conservative industry to get people to take those plunges in a risk-averse sort of way to do what's natural and exciting and innovative, to take those sort of leaps with you to move it, to invest in that technology?
Well, I think you have to have reptile skin to start with, which is, I mean, a lot of things are going to be thrown at you, and people would disagree with you. You've got to remember that vested interest is the killer of innovation. And that is a really, really important thing, because what this country needs, if you look at the UK, this government has talked all about growth. It's got to be growth, growth, and growth. And to create that growth, you've got to have efficient capital markets. And that means competitive capital markets, competition amongst exchanges, getting public involved in public equities, all the things that the Americans do incredibly well, which frankly we have not achieved in Europe, let alone in the UK.
Yeah.
So we need change, we need competition, and we need innovation. And that innovation can only come if you break down the vested interests that don't want to make that change. So, the answer to that is always believe you're right.
Yeah.
And when you start seeing yourself when you're wrong, correct, change, and move again. Every entrepreneur gets things wrong. You will fail if you just think you're pig-headed and you keep on moving in the same direction. What I created 11 or 12 years ago when we founded Aquis is a totally different story of what we're actually doing today. And that's because you have to get up and move and change every day of your life. And I learned that from a great man who was the founder of ITG, where I worked, and created the dart pools in Europe with ITG here back in the 1990s. And this man sent me a picture. And the picture was of a lion and a gazelle somewhere in the sort of savannah of Africa. And he said to me, the reason I'm giving you this is because if you're the gazelle, Alasdair, the first thing you do get up in the morning, is you get up and you start running. Because if you don't do that, that lion's going to eat you. And he said, if you happen to be the lion, Alasdair, the first thing you do in the morning is get up and start running, because you need to eat the gazelle, because otherwise you're going to die of hunger. And the lesson you learn from that is every single time you go in, every morning it's different, and every morning you just got to start running, because if you don't, you're not going to succeed. And I think that's a great thing about how you keep on pushing. If vested interest is there and preventing you one day, that doesn't mean that you stop running.
Yeah.
You just got to keep on going here. And if you're right, you will succeed. And if you change and find that right path, you will succeed. And that's why I have every confidence that we will succeed here, because there's a need in the market. There's growth required by the country because of the government, needs it. We have to have it. We've got an opportunity around the world in this technology. We have a markets business, I think, is absolutely positioned for good growth, and a primary market where we absolutely have to get capital to growth businesses. And frankly, it's not about whether ARM goes and lists in the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, or went to NASDAQ in the end rather than going to London. It's all about how do you get scale-up capital to the thousands of businesses that are the heart of the economy of this country. And without that capital, they'll never get the opportunity. And there were studies out last year which showed that something like 80 to 90% of companies in this country that were, I think, sort of mid-cap, around the half a billion type, 500 million type market caps, did not get scale-up capital. So it means that we're missing out as a country in these huge opportunities of businesses that have got through the startup phase, are growing, need that capital, and then don't get it. And we need to change that. And I want Aquis to be part of that change.
It's such an easy thing to strangle innovation, isn't it, in any country? But I think that you're exactly right, to find alternative, non-traditional ways to do this. And there's so much to unpack in what you've just said. One of which is, going back to when you first launched the business and saying, right, where you are today is a different sort of proposition, I guess, to where you first started. And I love the fact that again, over recent years, it's gone from pivot in technology being a dirty word to pivot in technology being the smart play, which is about, continuous evolution, which is, to me, at the heart. I mean, we've spoken about this before, right? At the heart of innovation is continuous improvement, looking at things, morphing and delivering and finding opportunities. And that's the entrepreneurial flair that comes into it as well, isn't it? When you see those sort of things.
It's behavioural change. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Most human beings don't like change. We're born to actually want to do the same thing every day. And I think a few of us, by design, by fault, whatever it is, actually thrive on change because you want to see that change. And I think you need people like that alongside the people who don't. If we all wanted to change every day, we get nowhere. It's finding that right balance and mix. So I think successful companies, again, come on how you recruit. How do you get the people who work as a team together? You know, if everybody happens to be one color and everybody else, you know, then you're not going to succeed. You need a very broad church of people who have respect for each other, who learn to work with each other, and actually communicate well with each other. And we spend a lot of time trying to get that sort of communication going, not only through work things, but outside of work things. You know, we have plenty of clubs and things like that people can get involved in. And the amazing thing is most people do. Not everybody, and there's absolutely no reason why they should, but a lot of people do.
Well, I think you're the only business I've ever heard that has a board game club, haven't you?
We do. I mean, there's one of our developers, a fantastic guy, and you know, he's got something like 300 different board games. And you think sort of, you know, when you get into the technology world, these are people who want to play all these sort of games that will be tech games. I mean, that's not at all. These are traditional. Some of them really, really old. And it's amazing the number of people who come along and we play these things. You know, and it's just such good fun.
And is that design because you mentioned there the recruitment. I know you sort of hire a diverse group over here. I know, you know, from personal experience, it's not easy getting people into this this business, but when you do, you know who it is. And I think it's genuinely, when you're out at a trade show and you see the Aquis team, whenever you meet people there, be it in the pub or wherever it may be, even down to your 10-year anniversary, which is spectacular. They might not tell you about it, but it's a genuinely lovely bunch of people. And there's a couple of companies I've seen over time that whenever you see them at a trade show, whenever you're there at an event or whatever it is, you can tell that they're of the same, you know, diverse whilst, you know, in background, but just have this wonderful sort of culture that breeds out through there. That's something you've obviously worked really hard to build as a business, and isn't just an Alasdair Haynes thing. That's a everyone thing, right?
Well, it must never be. That's the other thing with entrepreneurs, is that, you know, it's never ultimately about them. You've got to pass, you know, maybe the original culture started because that's what I believe. I wanted everybody to have share ownership. I wanted everybody to have a voice. I wanted everybody to work in a particular way. But you've got to pass on from that because, you know, ultimately one cannot be around forever. Great companies pass from generation to generation. I want Aquis to be that. So it's about getting the really good team around you and then making quite certain that everybody does get heard. And of course, you know, you have things like the games evenings, the book club, the sports day or whatever it is that we do. And it's not just about the winning, because people do like obviously winning, but it's more about what gets said and spoken and the relationships that sort of built. Because otherwise businesses tend to get very siloed. Development teams work together, sales teams work together, but they don't communicate with each other. But when you're, you know, being made to look a fool because you're playing a board game and you've done something really stupid, then actually that immediately brings everybody together. You know, everybody's got the same sort of humor and able to accept humility and all the things that go with all these things. Book clubs where people turn up and they haven't read the book or something like, you know, they're all the things they're not excommunicated at Aquis. You know, we'll sit there and you know, and everybody has hopefully a good time. And frankly, because it's not compulsory, far from compulsory, you don't have to turn up to the next one. But people do. So I think there are things like that are really, really important in companies. Absolutely something for everybody. We actually did, when all this started, we have a plant growing competition. Sounds crazy, came up, but we asked people what did they want to do. It wasn't a question of, you know, I'm telling you we're going to organise these things. It's tell us what you want to do and we'll make certain that the company can organise it. And one of them is each group has a plant which you're meant to care for. Mine was the first to die. I think somebody poisoned it. But you know, and there's a height, probably. You know, goodness knows how many cups of coffee were probably put into my plant when I wasn't looking. But you know, there's a height and healthiness and everything else like that. And it's become, you know, hugely competitive. And then sort of people attack other people's plants and whatever it is. And there's various sort of shelves in the office which have better light, so they sort of move them around to there. And it's all these. It might sound childish, But at the end of it, it brings a team spirit that's very important to the business. And it's that team spirit that I'm delighted to hear that when you go to conferences, you can tell an Aquis type of company. We're not unique.
Yeah.
But I think everywhere I've ever worked, I've wanted people, and I say it to my own children, there's no point going to work if you don't enjoy it. Your life is way, way too short. Not every day is going to be a good day. In fact, not every week will necessarily be a good day. Yeah. But if you're going for month after month and you're just looking to do it for the pay packet, don't. Move and go and do something different. And no entrepreneur should set up with the intention of making money. You do it because you want to get something out of the change and the belief of creating something that's different. Money can be a byproduct, but it absolutely, if you decide to be an entrepreneur and go into a business because you just want to get rich, I think you'll have very, very little chance of succeeding.
That sounds like to me a good place to finish, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
A fantastic. If we think about when we got together and said this is what we wanted to do, talking about innovation, growth, culture, everything around that sort of stuff, it seems to me like a perfect episode to capture all of that. So Alasdair, thank you very, very much for being our very first guest.
Thanks very much indeed. It's been great fun.
And thank you all for watching, for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.